I don't know where my house went. If I knew that my house was gonna look like this after 6 months of owning it, I probably would have chickened out. But here we are, without a roof in the middle of the winter, and it's too late to back out now. To understand how we got here, let's go back to the very first week of home ownership. Some unfortunate news. This wood is non-existent. I'm pretty sure it's termites, and I'm not sure how far that extends into like the structural material. Oh, good question, Past Chris. To answer that, yeah, it extended a lot into the structural material of the house. So much damage, in fact, that we have to tear this house down. Hold on, slow down. We don't need to tear the whole house down. It's really just this middle section that has wood framing that's like 175 years old. So here's the plan. We're gonna tear out all this termite damaged wood, leaving only the stairs in the middle. Then we're gonna rebuild it bigger and better with a 3rd-story addition. Today is a very exciting day. It's finally happening. The day when the framers are gonna tear off the roof, tear off this whole termite damaged north wall, get it out of here for good. And I'm excited, but when we planned this last week, the weather was looking better. Now the weather this week is, it's a little iffy, but things are already set in motion, so it felt a little bit too late to go back. I have the rebar inspection scheduled for Wednesday. I have the special inspection for post-installed anchors with the engineer on Tuesday. I have the framers coming today. It's 8 a.m. They should be here momentarily. And I also have lumber deliveries coming to get ready for the framing and also to do some temporary supports. So we're gonna have to work with it. The only day that will work with concrete is we have one 40-degree night this Thursday. It's currently Monday. The problem is it's gonna be raining maybe all day. We're gonna try to tarp off as much of this as we can. So with that said, let's tear off this roof. All right, hold on. Yeah, put it down. Man, the waste never ends. Got the alley filled up with bags. Gotta shovel all this up. And here's the backyard. Man, I wish it was bigger. And we still have all the siding to take off, all the studs to somehow store them back here for the meantime. I don't think it's all gonna fit. I spent a lot of time just denailing, sorting, and generally processing all the wood that I wanted to save. That's a wrap on pretty crazy demo day. You know, I've been visualizing this moment for months really, since I decided that I was gonna demo that wall and get rid of all of this. I've just been thinking about what it would look like when all this is open, and now I'm seeing it. And somehow we have to get this semi-closed off again before the rain on Thursday. Pretty crazy that the framing crew was able to take all of this down in a day. We still have a lot of waste to get rid of, but I've got guys coming at 7 tomorrow. Not excited to get up at 7, but you know, that's okay. That's okay. It's really funny now that the only way to access the 2nd floor is either with a little gymnastics or with our handy dandy ladder there. But you know, you can still get over here. no problemo. So I'm saving probably too much of the original materials. I have so much wood. And this is crazy because it's Monday. It's Monday today. This was a heck of a way to kick off the week. Then Monday next week would be the start of framing. So we'd have the foundation wall, we can do the sill plate, build the new wall, build this canopy. Like, it's gonna start coming up really quick. So with that, it's getting dark. I gotta get some rest and get up at 7 a.m. Come on, man. Bright and early, the waste crew was back to clear out the backyard, and we also got a lumber delivery. Let me show you what it's for. The plan is to pour new concrete on top of the existing foundation, and I want to keep these joists in place so I can keep the old floor. To make room for this new concrete, we're taking down a few layers of brick that were on top of the stone foundation. But before we can take that brick out, we need to temporarily support the first floor joists. We also jacked up this side of the wall about 3 inches to get it back to level. It was pretty crazy to see the ends of these joists exposed and to see them just floating over the foundation wall. There's clearly a lot of damage here, so we need to sister each of these with a new 2x8 to get proper bearing on the foundation. Next, we had to cut a few inches off of the concrete sidewalk so we could make room for this new concrete curb that's coming up off of the foundation. This is here to try to stop moisture from getting into this sill plate. After a whole lot of moving dirt and brick, we finally have a nice clean foundation wall that is ready for concrete formwork and rebar. The first rebar to go in are these post-installed anchors. These are basically drilled 6 inches down into the stone, and a special type of epoxy is used to anchor them in the stone, and this just makes the concrete above and the stone kind of one monolithic piece. All right, day 2 is a wrap with most of the work down here preparing the foundations. And we didn't get quite as much done as I would have liked. We have the inspection for all the rebar tomorrow, sometime between 8 and 1 o'clock. And I'm gonna try to get the inspector to come later because we're not gonna be ready at 8 o'clock. So we have a lot of rebar work left to do. We have a lot of form work left to do. So we have these post-installed anchors. These are the things that required the special inspection. And the engineer actually came out and had to watch us put in the epoxy and blow out the holes. Then he writes a report that the city will get. I was talking to the engineer for a while and I wasn't watching the crew as they completed the rest of these anchors. My knowledge of the project as the GC is really important to be around. It's not a big deal at all, but this wall right here only comes out to maybe about here. So we just don't need this post-installed anchor. So not a big deal at all, but I just love to be able to be on site all the time. I think it's maybe a little unique for GCs. A lot of times they just like stop in to check in on progress. But for me, I know this project so intimately and I know how everything should be built. So it's great to be able to just be here and watch the whole thing unfold. It's really, really an incredible experience. And getting rid of all this termite damaged wood and cleaning up the foundation, and it's just such a good feeling. And it feels like now, finally, this is the tipping point where we are making things better instead of just tearing everything apart, which we've done for many months. All right, it's rebar day. I had a guy come to quote siding and some facade stuff, and then I came back and saw the rebar work. Let me show you the structural detail and see if you can spot what's wrong. Okay, so we have these U-bars that are 12-inch on center, and then there's supposed to be 4 rods running the length of the wall. The guy doing this had the detail, so I don't know why he put 2 bars in the center. So yeah, I made him redo it, and this is close enough. The framers just wrapped up for the day. We got the concrete pretty much ready to pour, all the formwork in. There's a little bit of adjustment needed on the rebar. Some of it is like pressing up against the formwork, and I don't want the rebar to be, exposing itself from the concrete. So we need to try to resolve that, but looks like we might be able to pour tomorrow. It's gonna be a little bit rainy in the morning, but it looks like it clears up in the afternoon, and we have it tarped off. So hopefully things will stay a little bit dry. Also, the inspector came by today. We weren't quite finished up with the rebar and the formwork, but luckily he didn't want to hold us up, so he just asked that I send photos of the rebar anywhere that he didn't get to see it. So I'm going to make sure I get some good photos, send that over to him, and should be good to go. I'm trying my best to prepare for this rain, and the cast iron drain pipe is entirely gone. We got rid of it. It just got broken when we were doing all this work. I don't know. So the cast iron drain that goes through the basement and used to be right here is entirely gone. So if I just left this drain as is, it would just pour all the rainwater from this roof and from the backyard just right into the basement. And we don't want that. So I'm just trying to, resolve this water issue as best as I can. And also, you can't see it on the camera, but there's a hole right here. And if water is coming down, getting into that hole, it's just gonna flood our formwork, which is not gonna be good when we go to pour the concrete. So I have this leftover vapor barrier right here. I'm gonna try to do my best to make like a little water slide, And I already put all this dirt here and graded it out to just skip the drain and just keep draining all the way out to the front of the house through the alley. Good thing I have all these bricks around. It's funny, I spend all day telling the guys how to follow the plan and just make sure they're doing things right. And then I go to do some work and it looks like this. That's funny. But yeah, I forgot to mention, another part of why I have to do this is there's a pump in the basement that usually would be on when it's raining, but now that the whole house is open and there's still some electrical work, I really don't want the power on. Well, everything's getting wet. That seems dangerous. So I'm gonna shut off all the breakers so the pump won't be working. So I just don't want the basement to flood. I don't want that, So this is what we have to do. We're getting creative with it. And the finishing touch of this master plan of mine is gonna be a little bit of flashing tape here. Just hope that the water doesn't get underneath the thing. I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if it's worth my time, but we'll see. So I know that all the water comes this way. The water also hits this wall and comes around. So this corner is gonna be important. I think the big thing is that this downspout has a nice place to go. I really don't think the flashing tape is gonna stick well to this dirty concrete. But I'm using some steel wool to try to just roughen it up a little. I have this flashing tape here, but I don't even think it's worth using it. I'm just gonna use duct tape. Today's the day we want to pour this concrete. It's a rainy day. It's raining and snowing all night. And luckily my patchwork over there kind of held up. There's no water in the basement, so that's good. And all the formwork is dry and the stone beneath is dry, which is a good sign. The one thing that I've just been asking the framers to take care of, and I don't think that they can, is a lot of this rebar is touching the formwork. If you look at the structural detail, the rebar, these U-bars, are supposed to be at least an inch or so from the formwork, so there's room for concrete and so the rebar doesn't get exposed. This can be especially bad on the exterior side. If there's rebar exposed, then water is gonna work its way in there, freeze, thaw, crack, and it's just gonna chip away the concrete over time, and it's really bad. And honestly, this is just what I get for hiring the framers to do the concrete instead of a proper concrete sub. Rebar is not their specialty. These U-bars, they were just bending by hand. They're using these screws here actually in the joist to bend them. And it's just an awful job. There's tools you can use to bend the rebar where you can get proper 90-degree angles. They should have measured how, the other thing, I keep having to cut this rebar because again, I don't want rebar sticking out of the top of the concrete. It all needs to be embedded in concrete. So now we have to, take a Sawzall and chop the ends. And on the interior side too, where the sill plate's gonna go, there's more rebar sticking out. It's really annoying. But at this point, it's kind of too late to just redo the entire thing. Tonight's gonna be 40 degrees, which is a rarity. So that's why we wanna get the concrete poured today, so it'll be warm overnight while it is curing. The most important thing is that the concrete doesn't freeze within 24 hours. And then next week and the following week, they're all gonna be like 20-degree nights. So if we can't get it in today, we have to wait several weeks, which I don't wanna do. So we're gonna see what we can do to resolve this rebar issue. It's annoying. Yeah, concrete's done. It was very stressful, but everything worked out pretty well, you know? I think everything is good. Just a quick interjection here as you watch me vacuum out and clean the formwork before we poured the concrete. So I was at the house at 8 a.m. The concrete was poured at noon, so I had time to resolve all those rebar issues. I just made sure none of it was too close to the exterior face, but there is some rebar that's close to the formwork on the interior side, but that shouldn't be a big issue. I'm gonna keep it covered like this, and the concrete generates heat as it cures. So I think as long as it's covered, like it might even be able to stay above freezing, even when it's freezing outside. The logistics of a small site are definitely adding some complications to the project. I think a lot about just other renovations I've seen here on YouTube, like Jenna Phipps's project, which I love, definitely inspired by, and they have like just so much room for all their salvage material, and they have a huge driveway to put a dumpster in, and things just move a little bit more smoothly. And even just a staging area when you get lumber deliveries, that you can get them in your driveway and leave them there until you need it. Whereas I need to have the truck at the end of the block, he picks it up with a forklift, drops the delivery wherever there might be an open spot on the street. That could be all the way down the block, it could be right in front of the house. You never really know. I think now is a good time to talk about the dumpster situation too. For a little while, I thought about getting a permit to save the parking in front of my house. I kind of just got too comfortable with the guys coming in a truck blocking the street and bringing waste out. The street's not very busy, so usually it's not a big issue. But now that things are picking up and we have a lot more waste, the whole house is gone, I do kind of wish that I reserved that spot just for lumber and for waste. But it's a little money saved not to do it, adds a little complication, but it's not that bad. And to get rid of all the waste, it was 2 truckloads, which is $1,400. And I'm not sure that doing a dumpster would be any cheaper. I think the dumpster would be $700, $800. And then you have the risk of neighbors putting stuff into the dumpster, and you also have to pay the fee to close down the street, or at least to reserve the parking to get the dumpster. So I think the way we're doing it, I think it'll work out, you know? In the meantime, while I wait, I'm just cleaning up. It's a never-ending process.